We are so happy to have the Creative Time Summit in Stockholm. We would like to express our sincere thank you to Creative Time for trusting us, not only on bringing the summit here, but actually stepping into all of the curation of this event as a true collaboration. For many of us in Europe, and I think beyond, Creative Time is a very inspirational organization. I think many of you in the audience actually have looked to them for inspiration. And that's why we're so very happy that they are here working together with us. This summit has been curated by Nato Thompson and myself, but it would really not have looked the same without the people from the team from Creative Time, which is, as mentioned, Laura Raukovic, Sally Stewart, and Dion Sogrum, and a lot of others, and the Public Art Agency Sweden team, Lisa Rosendahl and Eddie Mucka, curators, who have actually contributed to curating of the stage set, the dinners, the parties, the performances, and contributed with ideas of presenters. Not least, Matilda Ekström, together with Sally Stewart, have made this from a concept to a reality, an amazing work. And all the other people at the Creative Time staff and the Public Art Agency. They have made an amazing job. Thank you so much. We are at the Culture House in the center of Stockholm. This house was built to convey culture to the people very, very broadly. It's one of the places in Sweden where the audience is very diverse. It's also right at the square of Sergels Torg, where the major demonstrations take place in Stockholm. So we thought this was a very appropriate place to have such a convening. And we would like to thank Kulturhuset for having us here today and tomorrow. Public Art Agency Sweden, Statens Konstråd, has existed since 1937 and was part of kind of building the welfare state where, fortunately, art was considered an important part. In that time, we have created many significant artworks. We have mainly worked with permanent commission and a collection of artworks. I started 2 years ago, and at that time, we started to investigate what do artists actually do in public space. It's not only permanent works. There is this richness and wealth of public practice. How can we transform our organization to think, if we started today, what would we look like? Would we really work in this way? And I think my mission, or I know my mission, is to transform the idea of public art into something else. And this is also why we've brought the Creative Time Summit here and made this collaboration. The summit is focusing on this strand of socially and politically engaged practices, and it's an amazing opportunity to be able to present a large number of various different entry points, expressions, and so on, to just show in this section of socially engaged practice, and then imagine the rest of public practice. It's such a wide and rich field. When we step out of the gallery space or the institutional spaces on the street, I think many artists do it because they want to find another audience, not just the people who already know, but people in the street that happen to be in that place, and to touch people in a different way. And I also feel that there is this strong interest of what is going on in society. So when you step out in the street, you also engage in the issues of society. And this is the result. This is also why the socially engaged practices is the focus of this summit. I think at this moment in time, we see a very, very interesting moment in this field, where internationally there is a lot of activity. And I think it's vital to provide platforms for artists to be able to carry out those works. In the summit, you will find also a different strand, which is more poetical and has a different kind of intimacy to it in the works presented. If we think with Judith Butler in Precarious Lives, she's talking about the notion of vulnerability. A state is by definition vulnerable because it's dependent on other states, and it is good that we have this vulnerability because it means that we are independent. We are not sovereign in our own rights. It means it's the prerequisite for a dialogue. It's the same with human beings. We are vulnerable, and we are independent of one another. We are not universes in our own. And artists have a very, sometimes an incredible way of reminding us in a production and consumption society of this condition of human nature. And in my mind, this is the basis for dialogue, to remember that the other is also vulnerable, not just to make our statements, but to create an atmosphere of listening, of sensibility, where that would be the foundation of social change. The content is, I'm so excited to see what it's going to be. We have Saskia Sassen, which is an amazing sociologist. We have Edi Rama, who's the Prime Minister of Albania, started out as an artist. I'm curious to hear what he will say about what it means, what does the artist bring into the politics. We have the Annenberg Prize winner, Amr Kanver, who is working with social issues, especially at the moment indigenous rights in his films. The nationalism section will focus on nationalism and xenophobia, which is a pressing issue in Europe, but also beyond. In performing the city, artists will be showing us how we can reinvent the experience of the city. The imagination is used for transformation. There is a quote by Katarina Törn, a Swedish researcher: "Public spaces don't just exist. These spaces are actively created, claimed, and made public. It's an action, it's not a status." In this section, Activating Public Space, we will also be looking at in what way the institutional structures affect what can be done in terms of practice. Art in the age of surveillance, we have state surveillance, but we also have the voluntary surveillance where we every day broadcast our lives. So the public and the private are kind of getting more and more intertwined. This is the section, this is the theme of that section. Then, tying back to nationalism in a way, but a different strand is the migration that Anne mentioned just before. How artists can suggest other ways of looking at it, new structures, critique different solutions. The most experimental part of this summit is the Summit Labs with Maria Villa. Please play with us. This is a new way of seeing if it's possible to create discussions amongst you in some of the intervals within the conference. We will have many other opportunities. This is very much a lot of presentations because we want to show the richness and wealth of this field. There will be opportunities, there are discussions in the lunch, there is the dinner at Moderna Museet, there is the party at Mossutställningar, and I would say, look around. Many of you in the audience could just as well have been here on the stage with us. I'm so happy to know that there are so many exciting people out there in the audience. So make sure that you get to know each other because you're all here. I think that the issues that we're dealing with in public space, in public practice, are so pressing and difficult to understand that we do need an international outreach to really understand those positions. And to have this close collaboration with Creative Time, I think for both of us has meant that we had to question our cultural habits, our instincts, our networks and so on, and expand them and rethink them in new ways. One of the descriptions we received on an email from Creative Time about the global outreach was that we would range from Vietnam to Istanbul. And we were like, but that's Asia. Why only Asia? And then we realized, oh, we're in the middle of our own map, and they were in the middle of their own map, so they would describe the world differently. And I think we're all in the middle of our own maps, and all of you out there in the live stream, you're also in the middle of your own maps. And I think this is the heart of the summit, to realize that and to try to step into the position of the other. I'm so happy that you're all here. Very welcome. Thank you very much.